court thing, which I think, ironically, Mark started this episode off, or right before the episode, by your Honor, may I approach the bench? And I had that sinking feeling in my gut. I was like, oh no, not again. And then it happened.
When we're in that mood.
To say render farm, despite really trying.
He really was dodging. Yeah. He was really dodging that one.
Baby? Bob never said the word baby. Killed me. Peanut butter? Bob mumbled once at the end. Iron lung? Mark mentioned one time, and we never talked about it anymore. Snacks that go well with root beer was a free topic. I just want to talk about that. I didn't really have a word in mind for that because I didn't really know where it would go. Things we would do after podcasts, so the word was theater. Best hair? Bald. I was waiting for you guys to rip me for being bald. You guys really didn't. Those were our words.
Did I say peanut butter, or did I say sunflower butter?
You said peanut butter at one point, I'm pretty sure. If you heard you, then it didn't affect the outcome. But I thought you, at the very end, mumbled like peanut butter.
I just might have thrown a perfect game, but editors replay that. I might be wrong. Butter.
Mark, I think you said bald once, you said theater, you said iron lung, you said lenses. One of those words I believe you repeated twice. It was either bald or theater, I think.
I think you said bald a couple times.
Yeah, I think I said theater a couple times.
In any case, Mark, you have the loser's speech, a special loser's speech.
I do, because today's loser's speech is brought to you by Mug Root Beer. Just like the amount of points I have, the can of root beer that I was given is much smaller than the others, hence losing. But that's okay, because when you're losing because you talk about your passions, and that's a punishment, at least you have a tasty, delicious drink to cry yourself to sleep with, and I can always remind myself that I've got that dog in. I may not have points or an outlet for my passions, but I've got that dog in me.
More friends who care.
Yep.
Well said. And you know, if this was the original secret words, you would have won. You said the word. You hit those notes. Unfortunately, this was part 2, where you lose points for hitting those words. So our final score, Bob 99, Mark 95, me -6.
Doesn't that mean that Wade loses?
Stay tuned for the next one where Bob will host. If you haven't already, go follow Bob at MySkern, Mark at Markiplier, me at Minion777 or Lord Minion777. We've been playing games on our YouTube together. We just finished up Chained Together a couple weeks ago.
No, we didn't. Not according to my channel.
Not me neither. There's a lot left.
Oh, maybe we haven't finished it. Be wild if by the time this comes out we haven't, but you guys just might need to upload a little faster, slowpokes.
I'm in no rush. I want people to savor the content.
Oh, I want them to just eat it, gorge, and be ready for the next.
You are the buffet. You are the hometown buffet of content, huh?
I went to a Fogo. I enjoy that buffet style.
Buffet.
That's it. Podcast now.
Peanut butter.
This episode is presented by here's another.
Thank you.
already does data better than Oracle, so now their AI model clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/insights. That's oracle.com/insights. Oracle.com/insights.
It's Wednesday, August 7th. Will Minnesota nice play in the rest of the country? We start here. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been tapped as Vice President Harris's running mate.
Everyone from Bernie Sanders to Joe Manchin is saying nice things about the guy.
He remains a relative unknown to much of the country, so let's get acquainted. The man who shot former President Trump might not have been the only one out there.
He had just spent some time in Iran.
Turns out another man was arrested for what sources call an entirely separate plot. And naming your stadium after a company is so last decade.
We talk about Pitbull Stadium.
What a rap star's contract tells us about the new era of corporate sponsorship. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey.
Why are there so many days missing? It goes from the 9th to the 14th.
Usually, a vetting team for a presidential nominee spends months researching potential running mates.
There's something else.
It's Friday, August 9th, and they want to do the invading for once. We start here. Ukraine launches a surprise incursion into Russian territory.
This is the biggest thing, basically, the most dramatic move that I've seen Ukraine make.
These scenes are reverberating throughout the region, but what does it mean for the wider war? If you thought swift voting was a political tactic of the past, welcome to 2024.
What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage.
The attacks on Tim Walz and the context you need to separate fact from fiction. And he lost the gold while battling COVID. He's not the only one.
We treat COVID no differently to any other respiratory illness, but we want to ensure that we have our protocols working as well.
With cases spreading, these Olympics have become a contest of who can stay healthy. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey.
They post this every weekday morning, and I'm missing like 4 days of it.
In recent months, it's been dawning on anyone watching the war in Ukraine that the Russians are making unmistakable gains. Along the front, the manpower of Ukraine is diminished. The aid from the U.S., some said, came too late. And yet this week, something strange has happened. We started hearing about a new incursion, not into Ukraine, but into Russia. That's right, these were Ukrainian troops marching across the border, and now it appears this was even more significant than initially understood. ABC's foreign correspondent James Longman is with us. James, we've seen Ukraine try to hit Russia's homeland before, but it's usually come in the form of like some shelling here, or some drone attacks there. I mean, what is happening there right now?
This is extraordinary, Brad. I mean, I've reported a number of times, you and I have spoken when we've heard about Ukrainian, sort of pro-Ukrainian militia crossing the border, trying to occupy villages. We've spoken about Ukrainian missiles hitting targets inside Russia. This is completely different. The Ukrainians are taking responsibility for this. They say that this is a full-scale military operation inside Russia, and it's extraordinary. We're hearing that there are Ukrainian tanks on the ground, Ukrainian special forces inside Russia, some more than 20 miles across the border. So this is an incredibly significant incursion, and we've seen videos that the Ukrainians have put out of them taking Russian soldiers prisoner. We've seen one extraordinary video of an attack drone, a Ukrainian attack drone, taking out a Russian helicopter mid-flight. So this is the biggest thing, basically, the most dramatic move that I've seen Ukraine make in more than 2 years of war. And we don't know when this is going to end, because it's been now 3 days or more of this attack, and we're not sure what Ukraine's plans are here, but it's certainly made an impact.
Yeah, I was wondering why, James, because Ukraine, it's not like Ukraine's looking to take Russian territory out of this. Like, is this to make Russia back off, or what's the strategy here?
Well, I think fundamentally the first thing, which is always Ukraine's aim, is to try to humiliate Russia, to have these images of their soldiers being taken prisoner on their own territory as an effort to humiliate Russia, not just in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of Russians as well. This is something that Russians are not used to seeing. It pro-Ukraine, pro-Kremlin blogs have been alive with this all over the internet. This is not something that Russians normally ever see, so it's humiliating for Russia in the first instance. But I think more than that, strategic goal here is basically that Ukraine knows it's going to have to negotiate a way out of this war at some point. They see the US election looming. They see possibly Donald Trump becoming president.
I think Zelensky is maybe the greatest salesman of any politician that's ever lived.
He has made no secret of the fact that he wants to pull funding from Ukraine, that he thinks there should be a deal as soon as possible.
I will have that settled prior to taking the White House as president-elect. I will have that settled.
So the Ukrainians are realists. They know that there's going to have to be a deal of some kind. When I was last there, I had for the first time senior members of the military saying to me that there's going to have to be a deal. The question is, what kind of deal? And Ukraine wants to go to any negotiation from a position of strength. So this is them putting their flag in the ground, if you like, to say, if there's going to be talks, they're going to be on our terms. We want to negotiate from a position of strength. You're dealing with a serious party here in Ukraine, and we can make life difficult for the Russians.
You talked about how Ukraine sees this as almost a chance to humiliate Russia. How is this affecting Russian forces, I guess? Is it having an impact?
Well, that's really difficult to know. I mean, it doesn't seem to have impacted the war in Ukraine itself. I think it's fair to say that the battle lines have basically been frozen for some months now. Whether or not Russia's going to have to redeploy troops back into the homeland in this area, we're not sure. The big impact here might be on infrastructure, energy infrastructure, because one of the villages and one of the towns that has been attacked by the Ukrainians is critical for gas infrastructure in Russia, so that there could be an impact there. But I don't think there's going to be a long-term occupation of this area of Russia. This is something that the Ukrainians have done to grab the world's attention, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hasn't spoken about it directly, but he's hinted at it in the way that he often does. He said that our Ukrainian armed forces know how to surprise, so that's a not very veiled reference to what the Ukrainians have been up to.
It's something that you can imagine being seen as heroic or also desperate, and perhaps both of those things are kind of happening right now in Ukraine. All right, James Longman reporting. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Brad.
Next up on Start Here, 24 years of National Guard service is usually a good thing on the campaign trail, so why is J.D. Vance attacking his fellow VP candidate? We're back in a bit. I'll tell you, when I was younger and I started using a credit card for the first time, I was obsessed with checking every single transaction, every single day, because I was terrified of something shady happening, or maybe getting charged for a subscription I never asked for. But it takes so much time to comb through every charge. Well, when you use Rocket Money, they'll do it for you. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Their dashboard shows you this month's spending compared to last month's to track your spending habits. Plus, they'll create a custom budget to keep your spending on track. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is submit a picture of your bill. Rocket Money will take care of the rest and deal with customer service for you. Rocket Money's got over 5 million users, and they've saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/starthere. That's rocketmoney.com/starthere. rocketmoney.com/starthere. Start Here is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Like every week, I have to take a nice bike ride. I feel weird without one, and I gotta go to therapy. I found it useful for years, and when you feel like you have no time, like all your obligations are just pressing in around you, then that hour actually becomes even more important to check in. You learn how to respond to adversity, positive coping skills. Maybe you learn how to let yourself feel that anxiety without letting it control you. Well, if you've ever thought about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient and flexible. All you got to do is fill out a questionnaire and get paired with a therapist, which, by the way, you can change any time at no extra cost. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/starthere today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/starthere.
So, Michigan, I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard?
In the days since Vice President Kamala Harris took over as the presumptive Democratic nominee, news for her has just kept getting better. An NPR poll this week showed Harris 3 points ahead among registered voters. Yesterday, another national poll from Ipsos showed her up by 5. It looks almost dead even in swing states, but for Democrats, this is a breath of fresh. And there's a time-honored tradition among candidates. When you feel like you're winning, you keep your mouth shut. When you feel like you're losing, you gotta move the needle somehow.
I haven't recalibrated strategy at all. It's the same policies.
Well, yesterday at Mar-a-Lago, former President Donald Trump gave his first open news conference in months.
I think that abortion has become much less of an issue. It's a very small, I think it's actually going to be a very small issue.
He's been criticizing Vice President Harris for not answering questions from reporters, but he's also largely limited himself to friendly interviews and stump speeches. Well, here he promised, finally, to uphold his commitment to a debate on ABC News in September. And while he made some jabs toward Harris,
Kamala, who, by the way, is worse than Biden. And she's actually not as smart.
It still seems like his campaign is unsure of which attacks they think will actually change the landscape. However, when it comes to the race for vice president, we are seeing what is in some ways a familiar tactic.
Well, if he wants to have a debate about our service in Vietnam, here is my answer. Bring it on.
20 years ago, 2004, Democrats selected a nominee named John Kerry, who's a senator from Massachusetts, a foreign policy expert, and a decorated war hero. Then, advertisements started coming out questioning his war record.
John Kerry has not been honest about what happened in Vietnam.
He is lying about his record.
These ads featured Vietnam veterans who, like Kerry, had served in swift boats, but they claimed Kerry had exaggerated his tales of heroism that led to combat medals. They were contradicted in a report from the Navy Inspector General, though, and men who had served alongside Kerry said these attacks were unfair hatchet jobs. They were effective, though. Kerry lost the election, and we got a new political term, swift boating.
To his fellow, he's Sergeant
coalesced around Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the VP pick who served as a high school National Guardsman. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have latched onto that last biographical detail. Let's bring in ABC's Ann Flaherty, who covers the Pentagon for us. And Senator Vance has been tossing around this phrase "stolen valor," the way we usually refer to people who wear veterans uniforms who aren't veterans. What is going on here?
So, they really have 3 allegations against Tim Walz. And Tim Walz, just to back up here, he spent 24 years in the Army National Guard. He was able to retire whenever he wanted. Once you've served that many years, you are able to step aside. And there was really no question about that. But the primary accusation by Vance is that Walz abandoned his unit right as they were about to deploy to Iraq.
You abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone. What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not.
And this was back in 2005. And what we found out what had happened was that Walz was planning to run for House office. He was planning to go into politics. He had been in the Army National Guard for 23, 24 years, and he was torn because he wanted to stay with his unit, but he knew that in order to run for office, he had to file for a deferment, and then he would potentially have to come back if they did deploy. So we spoke with people who were colleagues with him at the time. They said that he felt that he had a window of time to decide, does he stay in the Army National Guard and stay with his unit, or does he go into politics? And he said, I'm going to make the decision to stay and to try to serve in Congress.
When I coached football, soldiers who have died fighting in Iraq, and this Congress shifted the focus from the true war on terror and put it to Iraq.
At the time that he was making this decision, his unit, there had been heavy speculation that it would probably deploy to Iraq, but it wasn't a guarantee. He filed for retirement in 2005. So decision that he could have gone to other issues with him, and that he wanted.
Stolen. I usually think of somebody actually they want, like they didn't do anything of the sort, right? That's not me being like, well, only served 23 years in the National Guard instead of 24, right? Like, does J.D. Vance truly think that Walz is lying about his record?
Well, so there are a couple other issues. One is that Walz tells an audience in a clip that's was tweeted out by the Harris campaign on Tuesday that he carried guns, quote, in war.
And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
That's an interesting phrase to use because he never carried a gun in active combat. He would have carried a gun during his service when the U.S. was at war following the 9/11 attacks. He was deployed to Italy, for example, in 2003 in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. But there was never actually engaged in combat.
When were you ever... What was the carried into war?
And, you know, he's much. 18 with Minnesota. He said, I know there are certainly folks that did more than I did.
Willingly say I got far more out of the military than they got out of me.
Then there's another issue that has actually come up, which is about his rank. And Walz, right before he retired, he had achieved a rank of Command Sergeant Major.
I'm Tim Walz, and I'm running for Congress in Minnesota's 1st Congressional District. I'm a retired Command Sergeant Major. I spent 24 years in the Army National Guard.
Command Sergeant Major it's the highest enlisted rank for his unit. It comes with a lot of responsibility. But you have to hang on to this job for 3 years and meet certain requirements in order to retire as a Command Sergeant Major. We know that he achieved the rank in September and retired in May, but he didn't achieve those requirements to keep the rank. So when you look at his website, for example, as a website, did he was insult or undermine and we heard maybe well, there were people who said the person who I'm not going to vote usually people, you know, where you attack served should speak for itself. Of course, Republicans saying it's not about how he's framed it, voters can trust him.
Who have been like trying to defend Walz by being like, who are you, J.D. Vance? Like, you were a public affairs guy in the Marines, but that can carry real risks in combat zones, from what I've been told.
Well, he was a writer for an internal writer. He was what they call a combat correspondent. You embed with units and then you write articles for internal publications to kind of boost morale. And, you know, I think one thing Vance would say, though, is that
I saw a firefight myself, but I've always told the truth about my Marine Corps service.
Is this going to get traction with voters? I don't know. I know that it's probably just the beginning of the next couple of months.
Convicted of a crime. So using this very... That's all right. And Flaherty, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, one more quick break. When we come back, can it be a post-pandemic Olympics when global authorities say there's still a pandemic? One last thing is next. Story here is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What if comparing car insurance rates was as easy as putting on your favorite podcast? With Progressive, it is. Just visit the Progressive website to quote with all the coverages you want. You'll see Progressive's direct rate, then their tool will provide options from other companies so you can compare. All you need to do is choose the rate and coverage you like. Quote today at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance watched one of the most anticipated races of these games. Noah Lyles, the insanely charismatic sprinter from Florida, was trying to become the first American since Carl Lewis to win both the 100 and 200 meter dash. He'd already won the 100, but as he started the 2, he didn't quite seem himself. He finished third, he got a bronze, then suddenly he looked really wobbly.
And Noah not looking like Noah at all, and needed some medical assistance leaving the arena.
After the race, Lyles confirmed that just a couple days prior, he had been diagnosed with COVID-19. And this is not the only time in the games we've seen this. In fact, what had been described as the first post-COVID Olympics, the coronavirus has clearly been spreading among athletes at one of the most important moments of their lives.
Regarding COVID, it is confined to the water polo team. There have been 5 athletes in total who have tested positive.
That was the head of Team Australia, whose women's water polo team experienced an outbreak right as the games began. And that number did not stay at 5 for very long. At last count, 16 Australian athletes in various sports have tested positive for COVID. A dozen more were hit by other respiratory infections. And this is not just Australia. American swimmers, a German decathlete, a British breaststroker, all positive. An official from the World Health Organization appeared at a United Nations presser this week to say dozens of athletes have now been affected around the village.
In recent months, regardless of the season, many countries have experienced surges of COVID-19, including at the Olympics.
And this has raised uncomfortable questions of athletes and especially these organizing committees. Unlike past years, people who are still contagious for COVID are not barred from competing. They could, and they are, infecting their teammates or perhaps even their opponents. This disease is unquestionably still with us. In fact, the Olympics happen to fall right as Europe has experienced a rise in cases.
Overall, test positivity is above 10%, but this fluctuates by region. In Europe, percent positivity is over 20%.
So in the case of Noah Lyles, you could see him wearing a surgical mask indoors after his diagnosis. Dutch athletes were told to be even more proactive, avoiding unnecessary interactions with those not on their teams. But the vast majority of teams here say they have not taken any particular mitigation efforts. The Australian official talked about washing hands, which we know is not the primary way COVID spreads.
We treat COVID no differently to any other respiratory illness, but we want to ensure that we have our protocols working as well.
Now, the immediate consequences of contracting COVID are less severe than they were in 2020 for most people. COVID hospitalizations in 2021 dwarfed anything that we're seeing now, but COVID can still cause serious symptoms in people with pre-existing conditions. Think of Noah Lyles, who grew up with asthma. Long COVID is a concern. In fact, athletes in other sports have dealt with long comebacks and early retirements because of it. It's easy to say, listen, I want the full Olympic experience that I was deprived of 3 years ago, but you gotta think to yourself, are watch parties and cafeteria dinners in the Olympic Village worth potential? Public health experts say we have the tools. Vaccines, masks, and regular testing regimens have all been shown to slow the spread. But ultimately, in Paris, protective measures have largely been left up to the athletes themselves. And in these games, losing just a few hundredths of a second can define a legacy. I'm so upset the Olympics are ending. Like, closing ceremonies on Sunday, and there are still sports I haven't even watched yet. Like, I gotta get some climbing in. Gotta watch some sailing, some taekwondo, and by the way, breaking, like the new sport that I've been dying to watch for years now. I gotta see these kids dance their hearts out this weekend. Starting Jen and is the race for president even the biggest thing on the ballot? We start here. 2 more states put abortion measures up for direct votes.
The idea that the coattails work the other up the ballot just doesn't have a lot of evidence behind it.
There's a lot of debate over whether this will affect the race for the White House. The team at 538 will give us a reality check. Fires rip across Greece straight toward Athens. It's put lives on the line along with the long-term economy there. And an extra 20% is always a big deal, especially if it's votes.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
When it comes to taxes on tips, the whole political world is suddenly feeling gratuitous. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. before the midterm elections of 2022, a lot of pundits were predicting a so-called red wave. After all, Democrats controlled both chambers of Congress. President Biden was already unpopular. How could Republicans lose? One word: Dobbs.
Roe versus Wade is overruled. There is no constitutional right to an abortion.
They are not pro-life. They're pro-hypocrisy, pro-birth, and pro-control.
When the Supreme Court overturned 50 years of precedent ending a national right to basic abortion access, the issue was suddenly back in the hands of states. Lawmakers could suddenly impose strict abortion bans.
So what are we going to do this November?
In the fall, some of these decisions went straight to voters, and across the board, abortion rights won.
It was a tough issue, and it energized the other side. And
elsewhere on the ballot, that red wave fell short.
This is far from the red wave that Republicans were hoping for, but they have officially clinched a narrow majority in the House.
Well, earlier this week, Arizona has now announced a ballot measure had received the necessary number of signatures to get a vote there. That would enshrine abortion as a right in the state constitution, preventing the state government from punishing people who facilitate them. Then yesterday, Missouri announced a similar amendment proposal. It's now the second state in 2 days, and one of several where reproductive rights will be squarely on the ballot this November. Let's start the day with Nathaniel Rakich, a senior elections analyst with our partners at 538. Nathaniel, what do we know about these state initiatives, and I guess how many states will have abortion on the ballot in a few months?
Yeah, so at least 8 states are going to have abortion directly on the ballot this fall, and that includes some of these key swing states like Arizona, like Nevada, Florida, if you want to count that as a swing state. So not only, obviously, are people going to be voting on the president and senators and people who can make policy, but they'll also directly be voting on whether abortion rights get enshrined in the state constitution of a lot of these states. And a lot of these states, of course, have some pretty strict abortion bans, so it could make a significant difference, basically legalizing abortion in some of these states.
Well, so I guess the immediate question is, will they pass? Like, whether through other metrics, do you guys have any as to whether these ballot measures will be as successful as the we saw last
year? Early polling for some of these ballots on track to pass. It's always tricky with ballot measures because often support will decline for them as the election goes on. But generally speaking, abortion rights are popular. Even a minority of Republicans support them, so they tend to outrun Democratic candidates. In addition, since the Dobbs decision in 2022, there have been 7 abortion rights ballot measures on the ballot, and all 7 of them went the liberal way. So just generally speaking, we would expect most, if not all, of these measures to pass.
Well, does that mean that, because if you're thinking like, wow, people really show up for this, right? They showed up in Kansas and Kentucky. It might stand to reason that if this keeps happening in other states this year, that would help other Democrats on the ballot, right? Vice President Harris or other Democrats in competitive races, because you got more people with liberal views, I guess, pulling the lever. Is that, I mean, not so much.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately, for Democrats. Obviously, people vote on many different issues when they're deciding their vote for president or for senator or for governor. It's not just abortion that's going to decide it. You saw this in 2022, quite frankly, where these abortion rights ballot measures passed, and they outran the Democratic candidate in every single state that they passed in. So there are a lot of, like I mentioned before, Republicans who still support abortion rights, but maybe for other reasons are still supporting Republican candidates. Now, you could also make the argument that these abortion rights measures are going to turn out more Democratic voters or more like liberal voters who would then kind of, while they're at it, vote for Kamala Harris. But it doesn't work that way either, because, you know, if you're not voting in the presidential race, which is obviously an incredibly high interest race, then you're not going to be turned out by something that's much further down the ballot, like a ballot measure. It just doesn't work that way.
That's interesting. Yeah, because we saw these like large turnout numbers for these special elections. You're saying, yeah, they're big for special elections, but nothing is more popular to vote for than the president of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. Like, presidential turnout just blows everything else out of the water. So even in 2022, like, governor's races got higher turnout than these abortion ballot measures, and presidential races typically have like 20% higher turnout than governor's races do. So yes, like, and it's not that the turnout is going to be low for the abortion ballot measures. It's actually going to be the opposite, right? A lot of these people who turn out to vote for president are then going to go all the way down the ballot and vote for for the abortion ballot measure. So, but that phenomenon is referred to as kind of having coattails. The presidential candidate has coattails, but the idea that the coattails work the other direction, up the ballot, just doesn't have a lot of evidence behind it.
That was going to be my last question. I mean, is abortion access its own thing as far as a ballot measure, or have we seen this throughout history that ballot measures do or do not affect candidates themselves, that they're just completely separated?
Yeah, so in 2004, there were a lot of Republicans who for example, helping him carry the state of Ohio.
Yet I do not believe this commitment to tolerance requires us to redefine marriage.
But political scientists who have looked into this question found that there basically wasn't that relationship, that those ballot measures didn't turn out evangelical voters and conservative voters the way that a lot of Republicans were hoping at the time and claimed afterwards. Again, abortion is a different issue, it is a different time, but if you're looking at past ballot measures as analogies for this, there just isn't evidence for Democrats that this is going to help.
This is really helpful, because I do think you're going to have a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about, saying, yes, this will affect things, or this won't affect things. Really helpful to have a gut check from the people who've actually been looking through the data at 538. Nathaniel Rekich, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Certain hotspots around the world are used to wildfires, right? Southern California is one of them. But even in California, we've seen these hot, dry summers get even hotter, even drier, even more dangerous. Well, in the country of Greece, we are also seeing a similar phenomenon. Last year, the country saw more fire alerts than any other summer in its history. And just this week, another blaze has been raging near the historic capital of Athens. Let's go to ABC's foreign correspondent, Britt Clennett, who is there on the ground in Greece right now. Britt, what is it like there?
It's been quite astonishing. We've been seeing consistently hot, dry conditions and a heat wave, record temperatures in Greece.
Yeah, because we heard in June Athens is not that hot. Imagine the people who are working instead of doing holiday, it's much harder.
But then over the weekend we started to see these pockets of fires in north region called Attica. That started to break out. We saw the historic town of Marathon also break out. Homes there perished. And then it started to kind of hop into the suburbs, the northern suburbs of Athens.
We were able to pass through and saw the house. It was in its place, but it was completely different. Completely different.
And that's where we've been tracking these fires over the last several days, Brad. I mean, you talk about fires in California, in the States. As an Australian, I'm also used to fires and covering fires. But, I think because this was so close to Athens, a city which every year Americans and Europeans, people from all over the world flock to for some R&R, some rest and relaxation, and all of a sudden it's a little bit scary.
You can feel the heat radiating from it, smoke is blanketed the area, stinging the eyes.
We saw a fire move 18 miles so quickly, just tore through the northern suburbs into Athens, and it was scary. One person did lose their life in that. So it has been very quickly moving.
You've been talking to locals and to tourists there, right? What have they been telling you?
Heat waves are hotter and they're lasting for longer, and I think the concern is, among people we speak to here, is that at any moment the winds could pick up and these hot and dry conditions that we're seeing will persist, and then we're going to see these pockets of fires again. So it is a worry for people here, and you do get a sense of that when you speak to people, that at any moment this could take another turn.
We are for 12 o'clock outside.
You've been working hard.
Yes.
I just spoke to a young group of girls from Colorado and asked them, how do you feel? And they said, well, because we're from Colorado, we are used to this threat, but it's scary.
It was definitely scary landing here, that being like the first thing that we saw. Yeah.
They also said that, they do hope that it doesn't pick up again, and that's a constant fear hanging over them during their holiday.
And then, as we look forward either this year or maybe many years in the future, what does this mean for a world capital like Athens itself? If these summers are starting to get hotter and drier all the time.
Yeah, I think that's the big concern. Athens, which does to an extent rely on the tourism, that people will be put off by coming here. These repeated heat waves are getting hotter and they're lasting for longer. And if this continues to be the norm and a reality for people here, then it will start impacting livelihoods too.
Well, and almost to that point, like earlier this summer, there was this spate of tourists being found dead in Greece. And the thing a lot of them had in common was they went out for a hike in what had become scorching temperatures. And you can see how that becomes dangerous so quickly in these high heat environments. Brick Planet, they're in Athens right now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brad.
Next up on Start Here, everyone seems to want to abolish taxes on tips, except economists. We're back in a bit. Start Here is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Like every week, I have to take a nice bike ride. I feel weird without one. And I gotta go to therapy. I found it useful for years. And when you feel like you have no time, like all your obligations are just pressing in around you, then that hour actually becomes even more important to check in. You learn how to respond to adversity, positive coping skills. Maybe you learn how to let yourself feel that anxiety without letting it control you. Well, if you've ever thought about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient and flexible. All you got to do is fill out a questionnaire and get paired with a therapist, which, by the way, you can change any time at no extra cost. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/starthere today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/start.
Hey moms, looking for some lighthearted guys? Hey, Sabrina, Andy, Mitchell. Each week, we watch culture moms to along the way. Maybe where you get your
the job service industry. Where you make a big waiter work. Tips are just like any other. You're supposed to. You're thinking paper here. But lots of Americans don't. So they pay their shit. Some service workers notes customers to vote for Donald Trump. Notes if Trump have to pay tax on your tips anymore.
When I get to office, to not is making
flow to this idea, but he explained a ton about how it would work. Like, would this be a bill sent to? Would you make a this past weekend? Vice President Kamala Harris tells her supporters in Las Vegas that she wants to, wait for it, stop taxing tips as well.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
The Biden White House is now on board with this too. So what happened and how would it even work? Let's go to ABC's Elizabeth Schulze, who covers politics and economics. They seem to intersect here. Elizabeth, I mean, we're seeing everyone apparently is on board with this. Why?
And how refreshing is it, Brad, that we're actually talking about economic policy that's endorsed like across the political aisle? This is rare. I think it gets at a little bit what's going on here is this is politics, Brad. You laid it out so well. With the proposal first by for the weekend, President Harris, Las Vegas, so clearly workers in a bad state.
Already taxing us on eliminate.
They know that the popular, in theory, to pay tax, that would mean money. Notably, the workers' union, which represents 60,000, support and they know data percentage of employment in that state compared to other states in the country. So this especially to the clock.
Okay, so the workers like it. Nevada likes it, I'm sure, right? Swing state likes it. What do economists think of it, though?
Yeah, well, they're not so convinced, Brad. I mean, I've had a hard time finding economists who say this is a great idea to adjust the tax code in this way. And here's why. This idea that you would start treating different types of income based on different types of tax rates or no tax rates at all could be an incredibly slippery slope. I mean, first of all, how do you know how much people earn in taxes? How do you keep track of that when you're filling out your W-2? And then where do you draw the line? What industries specifically do qualify for this? We heard Vice President Harris say service and hospitality, but that's a pretty broad swath of industries. And do you start to see other industries then say, okay, well, we're going to start tipping too? I mean, one of the economists I talked to about this, Brad, said, well, maybe in the future, if this is the case, I could start charging tips for the calls that I take from you. And does that mean that he gets to keep those tips and that's extra income for him? It's just the idea that you...
Oh, wait, so you're saying, I thought you were going to say it's weird that the back of the house people are getting charged a higher tax rate than like the waiter who might actually make more money in the front of the house. That would be weird. You're saying, oh, entire industries could change their entire pay structure if all of a sudden tips were exempt.
Exactly. And if there's one thing we know about the tax code, Brad, which is incredibly complex, it is that companies, especially bigger companies and individuals, often might find ways around it to make it work to their benefit. And I will say, the Harris campaign did say they would put some guardrails in place, income thresholds, limitations on the industries this might apply to try to prevent some of those kind of escalating, cascading effects. And one of the other real issues that you hear from policy experts on this, tax experts, is that this really doesn't address the root problem. When you think about the service worker industry or restaurant workers specifically, these are not high-wage jobs. I mean, the mean annual wage for waiters and waitresses across the United States, Brad, $36,530. That is actually a number that in many states, you don't even make enough money to qualify to pay federal income tax. So you're not really even going to be in the equation on this conversation.
So what is the better way? Like, is there a better way to achieve, I guess, the same goal?
What economists would argue is that there are policies that could better achieve the goal of increasing those workers' wages. For example, maybe it is raising the minimum wage, which is something that Vice President Harris also proposed. The concern from policymakers is you don't want to end up keeping baseline pay so low that it isn't actually encouraging companies to continue to raise wages in a competitive way. And maybe a policy like a higher minimum wage is a better way to do that. If you are going to adjust the tax code, one idea that's out there that's had bipartisan support that is already proven to kind of address some of the inequalities in the system is the child tax credit. That wouldn't really get at kind of changing income and their income tax, but it would basically give money back into the pockets of people, would give refunds to people who might need it, who are at a certain income threshold, who need that money for their families. This reality that a lot of these workers are really feeling like they need more take-home pay. This is frustrating for them. That drives the pull. They want policymakers at the top of the ticket to hear their concerns, which are very valid. But is there a better way to go about that, and not in a way that just maybe is a great political slogan, easy to catch on, if instituted, might not be as effective as they say.
That's the thing, right? Is I'm thinking no one's writing on the restaurant bill, hey, you should vote for this person because they'll expand the child tax credit. Like, doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Elizabeth Schulze, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, one more quick break. When we come back, everyone loves a makeover. She just had to wait 150 million years for hers. One last thing is next. Start Here is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. What if comparing car insurance rates was as easy as putting on your favorite podcast? With Progressive, it is. Just visit the Progressive website to quote with all the coverages you want. You'll see Progressive's direct rate. Then their tool will provide options from other companies so you can compare. All you need to do is choose the rate and coverage you like. Quote Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you go. And one last thing. When something's in a textbook or a museum, it might feel like common knowledge, right? It's a fact. It's finished. Scientists stuff there is to know about it. There's a new species of dinosaur that exists. I thought we discovered them all already.
Well, not a chance, my God. I mean, half of them, more than half, are still buried underground and totally unknown.
This is Richard Conniff, a journalist and author who covers the world, including dinosaurs. And with our partners at National Geographic, he is one of the only people on Earth with access to the bone-by-bone reconstruction of what could be a brand new 50 million years.
Natalie, believed to be a of dinosaurs.
Report was just yesterday at Geo. Natalie was discovered in the Badlands of southern Utah by researchers for the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County in California. Apparently, researchers were being bitten by gnats the entire trip, which is why Natalie is spelled with a G.
They named it in honor of the... And those gnats have been around 150 years ago.
Can you describe it to us?
Big one of it.
Pictures of bones being assembled. This long-necked dino stands 75 feet long head to tail. The entryway to a brand new history museum was designed in mind. Her bones, they had to make sure her supports will be anchored to the strongest parts of this new structure.
There was a moment, and it seemed like a fairly worrisome moment to me, but they were very nonchalant about it. As if the head and neck were going to poke separate through a wall into another room.
But what strikes Richard the most is not Natalie's size, it's the color.
What's interesting about Natalie is that she's green. I mean, if you look at the bones close up, to me they look like frozen seawater. Deep green running through the larger bones.
He says 100 after the sauropods bones were frozen, this with volcanoes. When those eruptions were done and the superheated fluids were washed away, the fossils were huge, mesmerizing red.
It's been left in iron deposits. It's just a strange coloration for a dinosaur.
And as he watched scientists put all these bones together, Richard says what was so interesting was the guesswork. These bones did not stay stationary all this time. One paleontologist he talked to referred to it as a game of pickup sticks, figuring out in this jumble of bones. And by looking at one dinosaur, is it even one species, or is it a total mishmash? When they finally decided what did belong, that is where 3D printing comes in.
And it's an interesting process. I mean, it's an incredibly simple open box, and there's this 3D, there's this printer going back and forth, and bingo, you have a dinosaur bone.
He says it's a lesson in how we continue to learn all these years later. If you grew up with a brontosaurus as your favorite species, maybe like the land before time, it turns out that species never really existed. That was just an apatosaur that looked different because researchers had found new bones. Researchers say they're all just apatosaurs. Scientists also believe other dinosaurs had feathers.
The whole concept of what dinosaurs were and how they lived has changed over the last 50 or 60 years. So we used to think of them as these ponderous, tail-dragging, really basically stupid animals.
Natalie will look anything but stupid. Her neck and tail, held up by these complex bone structures, stretch out twice as long as a city bus. A picture of her up on Nat Geo had to be made out of 5 separate photos stitched together because she couldn't fit in one shot. Just like the researchers in the Badlands, we're all still experiencing the age of dinosaurs piecemeal. We will take what we can get, because I mean these images are wild. You should go to Nat Geo, check out the article, How to Bring a 75-Foot-Long Dinosaur Back to Life, written by Richard. Really incredible issue of this month's magazine. And we should say, the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County will open up this wing later this fall, so you can see Natalie in person. I'm Brad Milking. See you tomorrow.
No Wi-Fi? No problem. Solitaire Grand Harvest is my go-to offline card game.
Dive into the challenging world of Solitaire Grand Harvest with Sarah Jessica Parker. Strategize your next move, clear the deck, and immerse yourself in this modern twist on a classic game. Are you ready to crack the cards and embark on a journey of endless fun?
Oh, and it's free. No strings attached.
Don't miss out. Download now and start your Solitaire Grand Harvest.
August 15th. Can I get a price check on the election? We start here. With inflation slowing, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris make their economic pitches.
This report came just as the former president was delivering the speech on the issue of the economy.
So can a win for the economy be a loss for your campaign? The World Health Organization warns a virus is spreading, and maybe not the one you were expecting.
A coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks.
How Mpox began to spiral out of control. And sensitive campaign emails leaked during an election year? Where have I heard that before?
Iran is no friend of mine, and a lot of bad signals get sent.
The continuing fallout from a foreign hack. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. A few months ago, the game plan for former President Donald Trump was pretty simple. Attack your rival, President Biden, for being old, out of touch, and ineffectual. Highlight kitchen table issues like inflation and ask, why can't the Democrats get this under control? Well, then, of course, Biden dropped out of the race. Trump no longer had the same rival to kick around anymore. But, oh well, you might have thought, it's still the Biden-Harris administration. But inflation has actually been slowing in recent months, and yesterday morning, a new report showed prices are responding even better than expected.
Consumer prices rose 2.9% in July compared to a year ago, below 3% for the first time now.
Biden White House had been aiming at 3% as an inflation goal. Like, if we can get below that 3% mark, we're home free. Well, to some, this number of 2.9% felt like the finish line. It's almost certainly good enough news for the Fed to cut interest rates, which will mean cheaper loans for businesses and individuals around the country. In fact, yesterday, when Biden was asked if the U.S. has beaten inflation, he said straight up, yeah.
Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start right that way, okay?
Of course, to lots of American families, it sure doesn't feel like anyone's beaten anything. So it's no surprise that economics were high up on the agenda for both campaigns yesterday. Let's talk to ABC's Rachel Scott, who's been on the campaign trail. Rachel, what was the reaction to this news from the candidates?
Yeah, in many ways, this is the type of news that the Biden administration has been waiting for, and certainly what Vice President Kamala Harris wants to hear, considering she is now the Democratic nominee. She is running on the record from President Biden's administration as well. But Donald Trump really zeroed in on the reality that many Americans are still feeling the pinch. And Brad, this report came just as the former president was delivering this speech in North Carolina on the issue of the economy.
You're paying the price for Kamala's liberal extremism at the gas pump, at the grocery counter, and on your mortgage bill, and on everything else. How about your car insurance? How's that doing? Not too good, right?
But Brad, look, the reality here is neither Donald Trump nor Vice President Kamala Harris have really presented many specifics on their economic plans. Here's what we know. Donald Trump has promised to eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits for seniors and also on tips. And then in recent days, Vice President Kamala Harris also announced that she wants to end taxes on tips too, something that the former president has jumped on, saying that it was his idea first and that she's completely copied him.
And we will do something else which was copied, viciously, ruthlessly copied. No tax on tips, okay? No tax on them.
Harris has also said that she wants to raise the minimum wage, and she's teased that she will be releasing more of her economic plan ahead of the Democratic National Convention. Now, the former president has been under immense pressure, Brad, to really focus on the issues, especially on issues like the economy, not these personal attacks. And so his campaign comes out and they say they're going to arrange this formal speech right there in North Carolina, this critical state that his campaign knows that he has to win in November, and really focus on his message on what he would do for voters regarding this issue of the economy.
They wanted to do a speech on the economy. A lot of people are very devastated by what's happened with inflation and all of the other things. So we're doing this as a intellectual speech. You're all intellectuals today.
But Brad, it did not take very long for the former president to dip back into this familiar pattern.
That's the laugh of a crazy person, I will tell you. You haven't known. It's a crazy. She's crazy.
Attacking Vice President Kamala Harris, mocking her laugh, even going after President Biden, even though he's no longer in the race. He drifted from personal insults to attacks and controversial statements on the stage.
Well, and what was interesting is obviously Trump is being told by his team, like, you got to focus on issues. Like, people want to know that you've got like a plan for the economy. And then apparently Kamala Harris is like not afraid to be like, yeah, sure, yeah, we'll do that thing. And like maybe in a bid to even take the wind out of his sails. Is there a sense, I don't know, from polling or whatever else, as to who voters trust more in the economy, whether it's Trump or Harris?
This is the one area, Brad, where Donald Trump has always excelled. He has remained far above his Democratic rivals when it comes to who Americans trust to handle the economy. And so Harris is polling higher than President Biden was on this question of who voters trust to handle economic issues, but she's still 9 points behind Donald Trump on this issue of who voters trust more on the economy. And that's according to the latest New York Times Siena poll from several battleground states.
And lastly, Rachel, I mean, he's not just reaching out to working class voters, he's reaching out to working voters, like literally the labor unions of this country, saying you guys should endorse me, which a lot of labor unions have scoffed at. But is this bid for organized labor working?
Well, Brad, you really had this moment at the Republican National Convention where you had a major boss, the president of the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, deliver this speech.
The Teamsters are not interested if you have a D, R, or an I next to your name. We want to know one thing. What are you doing to help American workers?
And look, President Biden and the Democrats have long said that they're the party for the unions. And then the former president, speaking this week in a conversation with billionaire Elon Musk on the social media platform X, started praising Musk for not giving in to union workers' demands.
They go on strike and you say, that's okay, you're all gone. You're all gone, so every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good.
And Brad, that did not go over well with a lot of union workers. In fact, the head of the United Auto Workers Union put out this blistering statement saying that when we say Donald Trump is a scab, this is what we mean. When we say Donald Trump stands against everything our union stands for, this is what we mean. And now you have the Harris Walz ticket really echoing those words.
I saw our friend Sean Fain at the UAW had a name for that. He called him a scab, just to be clear. That's not name calling, it's an observation and fact, just to be clear. So.
And really interesting, Brad, because the United Auto Workers Union endorsed Harris. They note that she walked the picket line with striking workers back in 2019. And now the union has officially filed these federal labor charges against Donald Trump and Elon Musk with the National Labor Relations Board, stating that they advocated for the illegal firing of striking workers. It really gave Trump a lot more problems with union workers that he maybe wasn't necessarily looking for.
Well, in fact, Sean O'Brien from the Teamsters, you mentioned, a month after giving that speech, described this conversation with Musk as economic terrorism. So, I mean, really intense words now coming from labor unions. Rachel Scott covering politics and, I guess, the entire American economy. Thank you so much for breaking it down.
You got it, Brad.
Next up on Start Here, we might have thought we had an Mpox under control until it started spreading left and right in Africa. The new warnings after the break. Start Here is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Like every week, I have to take a nice bike ride. I feel weird without one. And I found it feel like you have no time, like all your obligations are just pressing in around you. Then that hour actually becomes even more important to check in. You learn how to respond to adversity, positive coping skills. Maybe you learn how to let yourself feel that anxiety without letting it control you. Well, if you've ever thought about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient and flexible. All you got to do is fill out a questionnaire and get paired with a therapist, which, by the way, you can change any time at no extra cost. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/starthere today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/starthere.
Want the same expert advice you get from the pros in the store while shopping online at discounttire.com? Meet Treadwell, your personal online tire guide that matches you with the perfect tire for your vehicle. Get your best match in 1 minute or less with Treadwell by Discount Tire. Let's get you taken care of.
In January of 2020, the World Health Organization declared a global public health emergency when it came to this new type of coronavirus. Well, more than 3 years and millions of deaths later, they did declare an end to that emergency status last year. Then yesterday, the WHO declared a new global public health emergency for a different virus. This time it's for Mpox, which you might have heard referred to as monkeypox before its name was changed. This is the second time in 3 years we're seeing this type of designation. So let's go to John Brownstein, an epidemiologist at Harvard Medical School. He's the Chief Innovation Officer at Boston Children's Hospital. He's also an ABC News contributor. John, I mean, we were hearing about Mpox outbreaks a couple of years ago, right? Why this new declaration?
Right. So we obviously dealt with a pretty widespread outbreak of Mpox in 2022, where we had significant numbers of cases spreading in the U.S., actually globally. Although we have seen more cases this year than last year, overall in the U.S. we have controlled this virus compared to what we saw in the outbreak in 2022. But unfortunately, what we've seen in other parts of the world, and specifically in the Democratic Republic of Congo, an escalation of cases.
Last year, reported cases increased significantly, and already the number of cases reported so far this year has exceeded last year's total.
Over 15,000 cases, over 500 deaths, and we've seen a rapid spread not just in that country, but in neighboring countries like Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, and which previously had seen no cases. So we're seeing a regional spread of this virus, and that causes concern, because when we have widespread outbreaks of a particular virus that go across international borders,
it's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives.
This is when the WHO declares a public health emergency, really to begin to unlock resources and funding to support the response.
Yeah, and John, I mean, can you just remind us what is Mpox, right? And what are the symptoms and how does it spread, I guess?
Just as a reminder, Mpox is a viral disease, same family as smallpox, and although less severe, can have significant illness, especially in certain populations. Transmission historically has been animals to humans, but we saw human-to-human transmission really ramp up in 2022, transmission through direct bodily fluids, skin lesions, respiratory droplets, and certain populations are disproportionately affected. Men who have sex with men specifically, we saw lots of transmission in those populations, and those symptoms can be highly variable.
I've had them on my face and all along my neck.
Overall, most people recover without issue. We see symptoms of fever, headache, muscle ache, but there is that sort of characteristic rash that develops 1 to 3 days after onset. But overall, people recover quite fine, but there is some level of risk of hospitalization and deaths from this virus.
Should we, I mean, and you said like we had kind of done a good job, a decent job in this country of containing it. Is there a chance, though, with what we're seeing in Africa right now, that this continues to spread even beyond the continent to other parts of the world? I mean, is another pandemic on the way, is what I'm trying to ask.
So we do have tools. We have a vaccine that was developed for smallpox that can be effective in preventing Mpox, and we will see ramping up of vaccination efforts alongside diagnostics and treatment, specifically antiviral medications.
Vaccines are one intervention that can be utilized, but we do know that there's such strong country work, community work in terms of risk communication, community engagement for prevention activities.
We do have tools to prevent spread, though those tools are not always equally available around the globe, and we do have to ramp up those efforts. And this is what declaring a public health emergency means: unlocking funding to support the response, especially in places where we're seeing widespread uncontrolled transmission. The other thing to mention is that we still need to study this particular subset of the virus. What we have here in the US is not this exact same version as what is spreading in Congo and other parts of Africa. There is a new clade that has emerged, clade 1b. We've had clade 1, and not to get too deep into the virology, but there is a new version, just like what we studied with COVID. The viruses change over time. Well, we have this new version of Mpox that is spreading rapidly and potentially causes more severe illness. Now, we don't fully know what that would mean in the context of the US, but we have to really study this as well as get this virus under control so it doesn't have more global impact.
And I was about to say, what we learned from COVID too is how something gets more and more chances to mutate, guess what, it will. And so therefore you don't want to have people keep getting it all over the world. Last question, you mentioned a vaccine. Who should get it, and how should they get it?
Right, so anybody that is considered in a high-risk group, and of course you should talk to your provider, but anyone that, for instance, those that men who have sex with men have been in a high-risk group because of the spread that we've seen in those populations. There's a recommendation that people should check the CDC website, because of course there's changes in health advisories and travel notices, especially those who may be traveling to the areas that are affected by this virus right now in Africa. But generally speaking, most people are at extremely low risk. And this is just an important from a public health perspective that we have to get this virus under control until it becomes a much bigger problem, especially here as well in the U.S.
Really helpful info after this sort of alarming message from the World Health Organization. John Brownstein from Harvard and Boston Children's, thank you so much.
Great to be with you.
Last week, the Trump campaign made an unsettling announcement. Microsoft had just published this new report warning they had increasing evidence that Iran is trying to influence American political elections this year. They said some Iranian groups had even attempted to hack presidential campaigns. By the weekend, the Trump campaign stepped forward saying, yeah, that was us.
The Trump campaign says it was hacked by the Iranian government.
Trump himself said that Microsoft told him that one of their campaign websites was hacked.
The FBI has now acknowledged that, yes, as far back as June, it's been looking into campaign hacks, but that is not just the Trump team. This could have well extended to the Biden-Harris campaign, and yesterday, the Harris-Walz campaign told ABC they are in contact with law enforcement over this. And this raises all sorts of questions for campaigns, for national security experts, and even for media outlets. After all, Trump came to power after an election where foreign adversaries and their cyber networks became a real part of the election year debate. So, let's bring in John Cohen. He's the former Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism at the Department of Homeland Security. He's now an ABC News contributor. John, first up, this purported hack, what do we know about it so far?
Well, Brad, what we've learned thus far from media reporting from Microsoft, and as you mentioned, even from the Trump campaign, is that a Iranian-linked hacking collective was able to, through a phishing cyber attack, able to gain access to the email account of Roger Stone, a person who has been a longtime associate of the former president, and was able to gain information from his computer that has been described as sensitive campaign information.
Right, and then in fact yesterday Google came out with its own report saying similar things, that yeah, this was a hacking group affiliated with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, so very much part of the regime. They said they targeted like a dozen individuals from both camps. Why though, John? Why would you do that, I guess?
Such as what we saw in 2016 where Russia targeted with cyber attacks both the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee, their information systems. What we've learned thus far from Microsoft and others is that these same hacking collectives targeted both the Trump campaign and the Harris campaign as well. So more to learn on that, but the objective here is not always to help one candidate, but to undermine confidence in the election process, to disrupt the election itself, to sow discord across our populace, to have people not trust the outcome of the election.
Yeah, can we talk about 2016? Because that seems like the thing hanging over all this, right? Is when Russia didn't just steal information, but kind of weaponized it through WikiLeaks. In fact, in that moment, Trump was kind of publicly encouraging Russia and WikiLeaks to hack his opponent.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails.
Has anything changed now besides the names, I guess?
I think the biggest difference is that we have more entities, more threat actors who are engaged in this activity.
The government alleges that they use sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign.
In 2016, Russia the election, and it's been well documented by the Mueller report and other congressionals.
And to damage a presidential candidate.
Now we're seeing Iran, China, North Korea, and Russia, as well as terrorist groups and domestic threat actors using cyber attack information in a coordinated and cohesive manner.
Well, they're looking at it, and they're doing it very professionally, and it looks like it's Iran doing it, because Iran is no friend of mine, and a lot of bad signals get sent.
In this case, it sounds like they were able to compromise the personal email of Roger Stone, but also while they shopped that information around to the media sources in this case didn't bite, and that the sensitive information was not disclosed.
Right, well, to me that was the weird complicating factor in 2016, right? Was WikiLeaks published all this information for the public, but very clearly in a way to sensationalize it. In this case, it looks like outlets like Politico and the New York Times described getting these weird emails from an anonymous source calling himself Robert. They were very deliberate then about proceeding. But John, what is keeping you up at night then? I mean, is it these kind of international hacks? Is it something else? What is concerning you the most as we lead up to Election Day?
Well, what's keeping me up at night and what's keeping law enforcement and election officials across the country up at night is that first, we are having this election at a time where the nation is in the midst of probably the most complex and dangerous threat environment that we've experienced in the 40 plus years that I've been involved in law enforcement and homeland security. We had one of the presidential candidates targeted for an assassination attempt. We've seen campaigns targeted for cyber attacks. We're seeing election offices and other state and local government offices and officials being targeted with swatting calls.
A growing list of officials on both sides of
foreign adversaries are using social media, including U.S. media platforms, as part of that effort.
And they may be doing it for non-threat related reasons, but it contributes to the threat environment. There is good news, and the good news is that law enforcement and election officials across the country have been preparing. They are better prepared than at any time that I've ever seen it, and they will continue to be prepared so that the public can be assured that when they go out to vote on Election Day, they will be doing so in the safest, most secure environment that law enforcement and election officials can create.
Here's hoping. But yeah, in the meantime, both these campaigns apparently in touch with the FBI over this hack. John Cohen, formerly of the DHS, now with ABC News. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you again.
Okay, one more quick break. Wait, is this why people say Jesus take the wheel? Because driverless cars are throwing it into park. One last thing is next.
No Wi-Fi? No problem. Solitaire Grand Harvest is my go-to offline card game.
Dive into the challenging world of Solitaire Grand Harvest with Sarah Jessica Parker. Strategize your next move, clear the deck, and immerse yourself in this modern twist on a classic game. Are you ready to crack the cards and embark on a journey of endless fun?
Oh, but it's free. No strings attached.
Don't miss out. Download now and start your Solitaire Grand Harvest adventure. Available on Google Play and the App Store.
And one last thing. When we think about self-driving cars, we're always comparing them to regular ones, right? Like, how will they interact with my car? Will they stop at the stoplight? Will they drive slower or faster than everyone else? Will they avoid pedestrians? That kind of thing. Maybe what we should be asking is how they'll interact with each other.
Over the past 2 weeks, I've been woken up more times overnight than I have combined over 20 years.
A few weeks ago, some residents in high-rise apartments in San Francisco's Soma district started being awoken by incessant noise in a parking lot down below them. When they stuck their heads out the window, they saw a bunch of self-driving cars honking at each other.
There has been all this honk, just honk, 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 honk from all these cars.
This is ABC's Alex Stone, who's been covering the self-driving car industry.
And finally, they've been figuring it out night after night where they look outside and it is a sea of these Waymo vehicles down in the parking lot.
Now, Waymo, if you haven't heard of it, bills itself as a self-driving taxi service. It's become increasingly popular in areas where self-driving cars are expanding, like San Francisco and Phoenix. Alex has taken a few rides in them.
Okay, here comes my Waymo. You order it like you would an Uber, and hit start ride. You sit in the back, or you can sit in the front passenger seat. You don't sit in the driver's seat. There's a sign that says, "Do not touch the steering wheel."
Hello, from Waymo.
But the steering wheel moves like there's a ghost driving the car.
So keep your seatbelt fastened, please.
Now, if it feels like a normal ride on the inside, these vehicles do not look normal on the outside.
Everybody's checking it out, taking photos. I've got my chill music on in here that they set. I just turned it up a little bit.
They are conspicuous because they're tricked out with all these sensors to keep track of everything going on around them. Other vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists.
But after a few minutes, the adrenaline comes down. I don't know why we're stopping and changing lanes all of a sudden.
And for every the roadway, there's code dictating what they should do. Well, as part of that code, whenever a Waymo vehicle is backing up from a parking spot and sees another car approaching, it stops, right? Which it should. But whenever a different Waymo car is driving through a parking lot and sees that car backing up, it stops too. In fact, if a car backing up gets too close, it's programmed to honk. But when it's all Waymo cars in a crowded parking lot, this is what happens.
They all think that they're about to get into a slow crash, not realizing that it's
and the will no longer be programmed. But it speaks to a larger issue that human drivers have long understood. Sometimes someone's got to take the lead. Right? You do this by communication. You wave someone through the intersection, or you give up the parking spot, or you just grit your teeth and back up, forcing another car to stop. Newer generations of driverless cars can actually do this communication in real time to make distancing and lane changes simpler. Another reason Waymo says its cars are 80% safer than the ones driven by humans. But you hope that this new era of car-to-car communication will be silent. Alex says what's really bizarre is you can tell whether Waymo cars are popular in your area, because he was riding in LA where they are just introducing these things. People are rolling down their windows when it approaches the intersection. Cops are taking photos of him. Meanwhile, up in San Francisco, he says people are bored with these things. Oh, there goes another driverless car, whatever. And they're about to be on Californian freeways. So everyone keep your eye on the road, please. I'm Brad Milkey. See you tomorrow.
right. In 1,000 feet, merge onto I-84 West. In 600 feet, turn right onto Biggs Rufus Highway. At the light, turn right onto Biggs Rufus Highway. Continue for 7 miles.
I never came to this TA while I was driving a truck. Oh. Maybe I shouldn't today either, because they don't have a fucking store. They got burned down here a while back. I thought they'd already long since finished rebuilding it, but they've got a fucking portable. They built this place, and within like a year of them building it, it burned down. And I thought it had been long since rebuilt up and open, but apparently these fucking trailers is all they have. I'll pass.
Turn left onto Biggs Rufus Highway. In 1,000 feet, turn left onto US 97 North. At the light, turn left onto US 97 North. Continue for 5 miles.
This is a pretty busy area. Pilot's full, this place is full. Okay. My video from Florida got blocked globally. Yeah, fuck you. I feel like with the ever-changing landscape of copyright, a lot of my old videos are probably going to get blocked and demonetized slowly, one by one. I will deal with that later. I may not be able to do anything about it, so that video might just be gone.
Is my go-to offline card game.
Dive into the challenging world of Solitaire Grand Harvest with Sarah Jessica Parker. Strategize your next move, clear the deck, and immerse yourself in this modern twist on a classic game. Are you ready to crack the cards and...
Oh, there's not a way out down here, is there? Not really, no.
Head northeast toward Frontage Road. Turn left onto Frontage Road, then turn right onto US 97 North. At the light, turn right onto US 97 North.
Who's got green? Who got green? Okay.
In 1,000 feet, turn left onto the I-84 ramp to the Dells. Turn left onto the I-84 ramp, then merge onto I-84 West.
Fell in through the clouds. inside yourself, and love come pouring out, and everyone's allowed. We're feathered by the crowd. And up there in the heavens, Galileo and those pining for the moon. It's a slow Radioactive. good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, the first time you felt alive. No good song never dies. Like a lover who won't back down, pull you over to the side, looks you straight into the eyes. No good song
Take exit 44 for Cascade Locks toward US 30. In a half mile, take exit 44 for Cascade Locks toward US 30.
I'm gonna try that and see what happens.
Take exit 44, then continue on to Wanapa Street. Continue on Wanapa Street for 1.5 miles.
Oh, you want me to get on the other side of the river? Oh, well, you should have said that. I would have been more prepared. Okay. I am prepared. Welcome to Cascade Locks.
Greetings chosen, I've been waiting here for you since the beginning of this universe. You know the world is fading. There's a secret power hidden in your soul. Don't be afraid to use it. There are voices in your head saying,
In 1,000 feet, turn left onto Bridge of the Gods Toll House Park.
We're taking the Bridge of the Gods!
K-Band.
Which I have been on before in a
Take the
truck.
next left onto Bridge of the Gods Toll House Park.
I have actually been on this bridge before.
Continue on Bridge of the Gods for half a mile.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Bridge of the Gods.
Welcome to Washington.
Welcome to Washington!
In 800 feet, turn left onto Washington 14 West.
In 800 feet, turn left! Taking a scenic route the rest of the way to Portland.
Take the next left onto Washington 14 West.
Though technically this side of the river we won't be going to Portland, we'll be going to Vancouver. Here I go.
Continue on Washington 14 West for 24 miles.
It'll be a slower run, but according to Google, it's going to save me 12 minutes in traffic, so I'll take it.